Hello, and welcome back to the first in a little while of our Card Games Studies series. I appreciate you for joining me, and today we're going to be talking about resources. What are resources in a card game? Essentially, they are the things you have that allow you to do things. Now, while that sounds like a very vague description, it can't really be put any differently without putting it into the context of a specific game. However, there are some overlapping resources that do crop up across game to game that are very important to look at. When we're talking about any resources, the first and foremost resource in a card game, generally, are your cards. Without cards, you can't play cards, and if you can't play cards, you can't play the card game. It's a very simple sentence, and you're probably just thinking that I'm stating the obvious. I am, but at the same time, it's something that a lot of people don't think about. If we go back to an earlier example where we talked about Uno when talking about tempo and value, the player who has very little cards in their hand, they have very little options when it comes to putting down their card. But the player with lots of cards in their hand, they can easily play a card every single turn because they've got all these different cards that they can pick from, and they have much more likelihood of being able to play something that's effective in the current game state. So that's basically what I mean. If you're low on resources, you generally have less options when your resources are being referred to as your cards. In another case, in a lot of trading card games specifically, the common resource that comes up due to the 1v1 competitive nature of these games is health. So we've already spoken about health as well, so I'll just touch on it quickly. But it's the same thing as the cards. If you have no health, you cannot play the game because you've already lost the game. And if you lose the game, there's no way of you winning the game, so you can't continue to play the game because the game has ended. Once again, I am stating the obvious. And that's okay, because this is just a brief look into the word resources and how it is used within card games. When looking at specific card games, however, such as Magic the Gathering, for example, you can look at different kinds of resources that come up within gameplay and that make a huge impact to each individual match. So the first and most important thing in Magic the Gathering are your lands. Lands are basically cards that you can play one per turn for free, always one per turn, but no more than one per turn, that generate a resource for you called mana. This resource comes in 5 different colors, so you can have mana of 5 different colors. Basically, it can be white, blue, red, green, or black. And essentially, what you do with this mana is that it allows you to play other cards as your hand, such as the creatures and spells that you can use to actually interact with your opponent. Now, why is this important? Especially in the case of Magic the Gathering, their land and mana system, while quite simple, is actually incredibly complex. Each of the different mana colors has its own sort of gameplay identity. And so the resources that you use and include in your deck in Magic the Gathering actually make an impact on the way that your deck plays out. For example, red cards typically are quite aggressive, whereas blue cards are very controlling. White cards look at trying to heal you and extend the game, and green cards try to make large creatures and gain more mana as much as possible. Finally, black cards are there to screw over your opponent, arguably not as much as blue. But this isn't a video about Magic. Anyhow, what they've done is create a resource system that actually is not only tied to the way that players are able to play out each match, but also gives the opposing player an idea of what kind of things they can expect from you while playing. If you're playing against a blue deck, you might be very careful not to have the opponent counter your spells. If you're playing against a red deck, you might play very defensively right from the beginning of the match, and you'll be able to see what kind of land the opponent plays down as soon as they put it down, and they typically want to play one each turn. So that means that you'll have a very good idea of exactly what you're playing against almost after a few turns. Additionally, designers want to make sure that they are allowing the chance for players to interact with each other by using these resources. If players don't understand how to spend their resources in a game, sometimes they may not play a single card. And then, if you don't play a card in a card game, you generally lose the game. So they need to make very, very good decisions when designing their resource systems in order to make them simple enough that players can understand, but at the same time complex enough that there's something interesting and they're not just the number that you use to play the card, which so many other card games are falling into nowadays. I want to, when designing my own resource system, create a system that allows players to be flexible in their gameplay. Through flexible gameplay decisions, players are able to make more decisions. And through more decisions, players are able to play a more complex game. It's very interesting the way that a resource system can be so simple and yet make such a large impact on a game. So I'll get more into it when we start talking about the prototype of our game when we get there. But for now, I hope that this has just been a nice introduction to resources as a general whole, because as you've probably learned today, it covers quite a lot. We do have another video coming today though, so stay tuned, and I'll get that one up later today. And we've got another video coming tomorrow, so we're onto it. I'll see you guys later. Thanks very much, and hope you have a really good day.